Hello, is this thing on? It's on. Hello, hi. Hi, Bridget. How are you doing? Nice to see you here. Welcome. I forgot to turn on my music. Hold on. Uh, okay, there it is. This is a bit too epic. There we go. Okay, how are you? Doing good? That's good to hear. I'm doing okay. I got like 5 hours of sleep, maybe less. I don't know exactly. Oh, sorry, I only know that I was lying in bed until it became bright outside. And the birds started waking up and singing. So I definitely saw that happen. And then at some point after that, I fell asleep. So I don't know how much sleep I got. Um, and maybe I'll crash a little bit after this. Who knows? But I really, really wanted to talk about um really wanted to talk about this game today. Um just singing? Awesome. Singing is great. What do you sing? Do you sing like are you in a choir or do you sing like pop music or what do you do? Um uh, Sorry. I'm also doing some breakfast on the side. Um yeah, singing is amazing. I used to be in a choir a lot for many years and then I stopped because I didn't know anyone there. Even after years of being in the choir, I didn't know anyone, and at some point it was, eh, sing music, but I'm not good. That's perfectly fine. The important part is to just sing and enjoy it. You don't have to be great at singing. It's just it's a fundamentally human thing. So doing it is good. All right, what game? Very good question. So I was in choir at a school. Oh, nice, nice. That's always great. Hold on, I need to check. Aha, there we go. Yeah, I think that's always a great opportunity to be in a choir at school and just to get that to get over. I think a lot of people have the fear of starting to sing, but being in a choir is a great way to just disappear into the crowd while doing that. So that's always a great. I'm not good at singing. Again, that is perfectly fine. Like a lot of things, and I'm still learning this as well bit by bit, is for a lot of things it doesn't really matter if you're good or not. It only matters if you want to sell things, right? But if you don't want to sell something, and really we shouldn't have to think about selling things, um then you don't have to be good, you just have to enjoy it. And that's the most important thing, really. Right? Am I good at singing? I don't know. I try. I like it. I haven't done so in a long time, but I like singing, and I just try it every now and then. I don't know if I'm good at singing. Um, there's probably going to be people who say, "Oh, you're good," who listen to me and say, "Oh, you're good," and then there's other people who say, "Oh my God, what are you doing? You can't hit the notes right. You don't have any emotion in it." I don't know. So can I listen to it? Uh, right now? Oh my goodness. I'm. I think there might be some karaoke session sections. I know I sang one song during the charity stream I did last week. Um, I have to see. Okay, you know what? I don't have to. Uh, yeah. To be honest, I'm not. I don't feel like I am able to get into it right now. Um, but if you check like past broadcasts, when did I do the charity stream? Wednesday, I think. Wednesday 2 weeks ago. Not forcing you. That is very kind. Um, yeah, I may do like I don't know. I may try to get more into it at some point and do karaoke redeems and such, but not right now. I'm not really feeling up to it. So yeah, sorry about that, but not right now. But like I said, if you check the past broadcasts, I know I sang one song for charity Wednesday 2 weeks ago. That was the big Trans Lifeline charity stream. Someone donated $10, and that was that I sing a song. So it's definitely there. You listen to music and sing. That's the best way. Just listen to music and sing along. That is always great. Um. Also, I don't know if I sing right now if that will like murder the VOD or get it muted or struck. So I have to check that. You do that? Yeah. More people should do that. That is always great. Just like artistic creation is inherently human, and we should just allow that to flow and to be a thing. Do you have the video of it? If you check on my, did I upload it to YouTube as well? It should still be on Twitch. Like if you check my past broadcasts on Twitch, um, then it should still be on there. Did I upload it on YouTube? Question. Yes. Yes, I did. It's also on YouTube. Um, yeah, end of March. So 27th of March. When was it? So 27th of March is the fundraiser video, and it's toward the end. Very close toward the end. 4 hours. Starting at around 4 hours in. Um, yeah, somewhere there. Yeah, I'll post it on here if you do want to see it. Um, that's when I did a karaoke thing for charity. Um, but yeah, not today. I don't feel really up to it right now, so I'll be back. Okay. In the meantime, my mouse on? Yeah. In the meantime, um, yeah, let's watch it really quick. Okay, no problem. Mm, but yeah, it's in the title of this stream, so let me just write it down here. Don't rest your head. This is a horrible line. This is horrible handwriting right now. I do apologize. This stream, I will just blame everything on I didn't get enough sleep. Because I'm allowed to do that. I am the streamer. And I honestly didn't get enough sleep. Um, I don't know why. I was super, super tired. I haven't been getting enough sleep the past couple of days. Always like 6 hours. Um, and then yesterday I was like, okay, instead of going to bed at 4 a.m., let me go to bed at 2 a.m. or 2:30 a.m. or 3 a.m. Maybe that'll work out. And then I went to bed and thought, okay, this time I'm gonna get 7 hours of sleep. Slightly better than just 6. And then my brain was just like, yo, what if I refuse to calm down? And what if I just, churn out thoughts and think and think and think and think? And then at some point, the sun started to rise and birds started to sing. And it's like, oh crap. It's something like 5:30 a.m. already. Maybe 6 a.m. I am not getting enough sleep tonight. And here we are. But I want to talk about this game. I really, really want to. I haven't, because this is for two reasons. So I wanted to cover some other things first before coming to this game. Um, some more fundamental things, because this game, I want to analyze the design for one, and then use that for one of my own projects. So analyzing the design kind of requires uh like to understand why the design of this game is so great. It helps to know a little bit about game design in general, RPG design in general, to really appreciate it and to understand what's going on. So I wanted to cover some other things first. And the second reason why I'm only covering this now, even though it's my favorite game, is I've been trying to use this game to make my own design and it never worked. And I think now I have some idea of how to proceed. And I want to try that out this stream. Right? The idea just suddenly came to me last week. It's like, huh, I could, or even this week, and it's like, huh, I could totally do this. I can try doing this. And now that I actually have an idea of how to use the design of this game for my own projects, now I can say, all right, let's introduce this and let's work with it. So, don't rest your head. Um, so what is it? What even is don't rest your head? Don't rest your head, very, 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 very importantly, is a horror game. Now, why is this so important? Why is that? Why is horror such an important element to the design? Here's the thing. Horror is a special genre, because horror as a medium is meant to scare the audience. Right? So, um, when you are reading a horror story, when you are watching a horror film, when anything like that, when you are playing a horror game, you need to scare the audience. Horror is based on fear, duh, right? Um, but the thing is that it's not enough for the characters in the story to be scared. Obviously, they should be scared, probably. In a lot of horror stories, they are. But horror is only effective as a story medium, or not media as a, oh my god, not as a medium, horror as a genre. Well, are you kidding me? Did I just write everything on the background layer? I wrote everything on the background layer. Whoops. Okay. Okay, hold on. A layer check while writing. This is wow. Okay. Okay, I can work with this. That's okay. And then background. Let me uh how do I fix this? Like so. Okay. Um and the text is still here. Okay, it still has like part of the background, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. That's okay. I can live with it. Right. Now we're on the correct layer. We're on the correct layer. Okay. Singing is so funny with the echo. I mean, a lot of people um use reverb. So I guess it I don't know. I just installed it as well. I don't know how it works. Eh. You're laughing? Oh no. Ah well. I guess then it's successful, maybe. Um good. But yeah, a lot of people actually use reverb when they sing karaoke on thing. I don't know why. Maybe it makes it sound more full or so. I just know everyone else does it, so I did it as well, and people said the reverb is okay. So, I did good. Thank you. All right. So, horror as a genre. There we go. That's what we need. Horror as a genre is meant to scare the audience. Right. There we go. So, when you are reading a horror story, watching a horror movie, or playing a horror game, right? You, the person in front of the screen, the person in the real world, not the person in the fiction. You, the person in the real world, needs to become scared by the horror. That's kind of the point of horror, right? Um, Obviously, stories as art are meant to make us feel emotions in a certain way or make us engage with it in some way. Horror is meant to make us feel fear in any of its varieties. So when you play a horror game, the game needs to scare you, the player. Right? That's okay. Is it just me or is the music a bit loud? Let me turn it down. Okay, so uh hold on, yeah, the music is a bit, it's blasting a bit in my ear as well. Okay. So it's distracting me a bit. It just needs to be in the background to have some noise. Right. Okay. So Right, so when you're playing a horror game, it's not enough to just uh make make like the characters in the story scared and have them go through things. No, it needs to tell the story. It needs to tell a very specific kind of story in a specific way, using specific techniques to make you, the player, scared. Possibly in ways that are different from making the characters scared, right? So you do things like using camera angles in a specific way, or playing creepy music that the characters in the story will not hear, but you, the player, will, right? And that is supposed to unnerve you. That is supposed to make you scared. You're welcome, but it was funny. You know what? Maybe I should have to. I should properly listen to that and then see how the reverb is working. Maybe it's too strong. We'll see. Um, right. So the game needs to do certain things to scare the player, right? So, um, a horror game uses certain techniques to scare the player. Now, a lot of these techniques are narrative or are of the framing and presentation kind. So techniques would be things like techniques are typically, let me write this in green still. Techniques are largely narrative or presentational. Yes, I do. I do that as well. I do ara ara. Do I have that unlocked? I don't know. Uh, I do now. I also have it as a point redeem, actually. Yes, I have it as a point redeem. Okay. Um, so what do I mean? So things like telling. I saw when you did it. Yeah, that was mistakenly so, but it's for charity, so it's all good. Telling specific stories, right? Not every story is automatically a horror story. Only specific kinds of stories are horror stories, but more types than on YouTube. Yeah, I did it in the charity stream as well. So I thought someone had donated for that, but okay. But a lot of it is also like I'm gonna call it the editing, right? So things like how you how you present, how, oh my goodness, how the story is told, right? How much you reveal. What was that? You looking like a pause? I was? What was it? You looking like did I? What do you mean I looked like I paused? Like in the just right now. Oh, maybe there was a hiccup on Twitch or on my OBS. Did I lose something? Not really. I don't. It doesn't look like I lost anything. Like I was frozen. Maybe that was um words. Uh, VTube Studio. Maybe VTube Studio did something funny. I don't know. I didn't do anything. Maybe some program froze a little bit. But I don't know. But I hope everything is okay now. Um, Never mind. Yeah, if it happens again, let me know. Then that might mean that there's a connection issue over here, or some program isn't running correctly. OBS is keeps saying, please update me. Maybe it's someone thing over there. I hope not, but yeah. If it does happen again, let me know, and then I can see if something is happening. Um, but yeah, how the story is told. So, how much you reveal, right? It's like if the characters are fighting against a monster, don't show the monster, right? Don't tell the audience everything. The audience needs to be left in the dark in order to become nervous and to become unnerved and to become scared uh, of what might happen. Um, Things like effects, right? And this includes things like music, um, but also the ever-present and overused jump scare, right? And if you look at something like these effects are not in universe. Like the characters in the story don't really experience these effects in the same way that the audience does. So for one, the characters don't hear the music. The characters don't see camera shots, right? When we are supposed to become scared, um, it's like we see someone, I don't know, walking around at home or reading something, watching TV at home, and then we cut over to someone sneaking along the hallway up to the room. But we only see like the feet on the carpet. We don't know who it is. We don't know what they want. We don't know what's gonna happen. But the way the scene is framed, it's like, uh-oh, this person is in the living room watching TV, completely oblivious. But we, the audience, we know something horrible is about to happen. We can see this person sneak up on uh on the unsuspecting victim, right? And then music builds up. The music becomes tense and such, and the characters in the story don't hear that, but we, the audience, hear it. So we start to become tense as well. And then at some point we get the jump scare of this person jumps out the door, and then the way this is framed is not a large shot of the entire room, and then somewhere in the back the door just opens. No, the camera zoomed in on the door, and then boom, it blows off the hinges, and this dude just leaps into the room right into the camera, and that is supposed to scare us, right? But these are only things that the audience perceives. These are not things that the characters in the story perceive. So the fear we feel as an audience is specifically on how the story is told with these framing effects, with these supporting effects, right? And but that's the whole point of horror. When you're doing horror, you are trying to scare the audience in specific ways. And if you're playing a horror game as well, right? A lot of horror games are first person. Have you listened to You See It Again? Oh, See You Again? Uh I don't think so. I don't know that one. Sorry. Um, I may have to. I'll have to look that one up. I don't know that song. Sorry. Um, but yeah, so it's all of these effects of how you tell the story, right? These editing effects, really. And similar when you're playing a game, right? A lot of horror games are first person for a reason, because when you are in first person or very, very close third person, right? So not a very zoomed out third person, but very close that you cannot see a lot, so that you can have things happen around the view of the player, and the player cannot keep everything in view at once. Like if you enter a room and the entire room is visible, right? You can keep an eye on things and kind of see when something is happening. But if you can only see a small section in a first person perspective, you cannot keep everything in view at all times, and then suddenly something might happen behind you and you turn around to check, but in that moment of hearing something behind you and turning around, that moment is incredibly tense, right? And that's intentional. Or things like the music in the game, maybe things like how cutscenes are framed, right? Things like scary sound effects, etc., etc. A lot of these things of how the story is presented, how the narrative is presented, are also present in the game, and they are there to scare the player. Now, there are, of course, some mechanical things that you can do as a game. Uh, Mechanical techniques are also possible, right? That said, a lot of these techniques, many mechanic, mechanical, not mechanicat. Oh my goodness, mechanical. Many mechanical bleh, techniques rely on restriction or denial. So, what do I mean by that? Things like take away control, right? Mess with the camera, right? Um, so Amnesia has this, for instance, and it tells you that all the way in the beginning part, like the tutorial part, if your character stands in the dark for too long, um, they start seeing things, and they like it starts to affect their mind, and the way it affects your mind, part of it is that the camera starts moving around, right? As if the person was it's a first person game, so it's as if the person was starting to stagger and sway around, and the camera just starts moving around and you cannot control it as well anymore, right? And that loss of control over the camera makes things tense, because it means you cannot defend yourself or run away from the things that are out there to kill you or to otherwise do horrific things to you as effectively. Like if your camera is moving around, swaying around, then you cannot run away effectively. You cannot look where you want to and run away. That's the idea. Mess with the camera or the controls, right? Maybe there's a delay that starts getting into the controls, or maybe the controls get messed up, right? If you press forward, the character doesn't actually move forward, they move like in a weird meandering like zigzag line and things like that. That some games do that, or suddenly your character is unable to run, whatever, right? Um, or they darken certain parts of the camera of the field of view. Um, and they limit what you can do, right? Depending on the game. Some games might suddenly be like, oh, you cannot access the inventory anymore for whatever reason, right? Or uh, oh, you cannot do perform this action anymore that you could when you're not actively being chased by a monster, or if your character is not losing their mind or whatever. So a lot of these mechanical effects, and mechanical effects also include things like uh, monsters, things like no combat, or very convoluted. Right now, I'm just talking about horror games in general. Convoluted combat, right? So think about um, in a lot of games, like again, or in a lot of horror games, there will be monsters chasing you, but you cannot fight them. You can only run away and hide, right? That makes the monsters inherently very, very scary if you cannot defend yourself. And that is a restriction of your possibilities, of your options. You cannot fight the monster. You can only run away and hide and hope it ignores you for a while, right? Or combat is very, very convoluted. Like you have to go through a lot of steps, or it takes a long time between attacks. Things like Fatal Frame. Fatal Frame is you are in a haunted house of some sort or haunted area, and there are ghosts, and the way to beat the ghosts is um to take pictures of them with your special camera. But taking pictures of your ghosts, of the ghosts, is very convoluted because you have to wait until the ghosts are in frame, and if you want to take a new picture, you have to reload the negative, or the like the Polaroid thing and such, and it takes a long time, etc. So that's very convoluted. Thanks for the hydrates and the stretch. All right. Oh, okay. Big stretch and then a hydrate. Am I scared? Here's the thing. I love reading horror stories, but I am really, really bad with horror movies and horror games. Like I don't know. It's the way horror movies and games and such can suck you in, and really, like good ones, like can really suck you in. Um, is is nerve wracking. I don't. I think a lot of the way it's because a lot of these games overuse jump scares, and I do not like jump scares. Um, that's the biggest reason. Like you can't really have a jump scare in writing. That's not an effect you can use. But jump scares are very easy to do in a visual medium like a movie or a game. Right? They are very, very easy to do, but they are very cheap. And I absolutely do not like jump scares because they they overload my senses. And there are too many of them, and there are uh it's it's just I can't take the constant how do you call that? The constant intense uh I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Trigger? That's not really it. Um Bombarding of like my mental state and of my senses, I guess. Like I can deal with psychological horror, right? I can deal with creepy atmosphere. I can deal with all of those things. Um the like implications of horrific things happening. That is all fine, right? And those are all things you can have in written stories as well. So if a movie uses that or a game uses that, that is perfectly fine. But way too often, horror games and movies overuse jump scares, and I cannot deal with that. And it's the expectation of the jump scare um, that means I cannot get into a lot of horror games and horror movies. I just oh, it's too much. Getting jump scared easily a lot, and sometimes get nightmares. Sometimes I get nice. I mean, there are effective jump scares, but those are very, very rarely used. Right? Jump scares are easy to use, they're cheap to use, and so they get overused, and that sucks. Um, so yeah, that's why I don't really like it too much. Um, yeah, getting jump scared a lot. Oof. By horror stories or like just in general because that's mm, I guess it's also like the anxiety, right? Expecting the jump scare all the time is fills me with anxiety instead of with thrill. Right? Thrill is a good emotion. And if you watch certain horrors or thrillers, that's in the name, right? You want to feel the thrill. But expecting a jump scare fills me with anxiety instead, and that is not a good emotion. Um, explaining like saying boo. Explaining like you saying boo, getting jump scare. Oh, yeah, that is yeah. So maybe you know what I'm talking about. Like I don't enjoy those things. Definitely not. Um, hold on, mechanics. There was one more mechanic I just thought of. Uh, oh yeah, cheating. Just plain old cheating. If it fits, generally you get jump scared. Oof, yeah, that's yeah, that can be very, very rough, I guess. Um, if yeah, if you get jump scared a lot, I am sorry to hear that. Unless you really enjoy it, in which case, awesome. um, but things like cheating, meaning teleporting monsters, right? Let me put this here. Um, so things like there's a monster in front of you, right? It suddenly pops out, and you're like, "Oh no, I need to run!" You turn around, and then the monster suddenly appears behind you as well. It's like, "Oh no, how did it get there?" Right? Some of that can be very effective. I am okay. Thank you. Um, so these are some of the mechanical ways a game can create horror. Mm, and a lot of these are on restrictions or denials of options, of choices, of control, etc., etc. Right? when talking about horror games. So why hold on. Okay. Why is don't rest your head. Welcome, are you shy? I guess I am. I don't get called that very often. So I don't know how to deal with compliments. Seriously, I don't get them very often. So I appreciate them, but I don't know how to deal with them. Um I don't know. I just don't get compliments very often, I guess. It's just not a thing. So I don't know. I get used to it, maybe. If I get enough compliments. That's a weird thing to say, but yeah. Um yeah, it was never a thing in my life, really. Getting compliments like this. Or just compliments in general. But yeah, thank you. Um so cute laugh. What are you? Oh my god, you're making me all flustered. Oh god. Thank you. Um so yeah, the when you are playing Don't Rest Your Head, you are playing a horror game, right? That's like the game the text tells you this is a horror game. So when you're playing this, you are playing a horror game. So you got to buy into that and you need to be willing to get scared and such. Okay, all good. And just like how there are a lot of narrative ways to like all of these narrative techniques of telling a horror story, you can apply them to running a horror role playing game as well, right? So there are a lot of advice videos out there, a lot of articles out there, like game mastering tips, etc., on how to run effective horror games. Um, and they will all tell you, well, horror games are meant to get the players scared. So you can try this and this and this, right? You can try setting the mood with music and candles. You can, which by the way, I have played in a game like that. Is really effective. Um, there are things like how do you describe things, how to use descriptions effectively, how to use voices effectively, how to cut between scenes, how to what kinds of stories to tell that make effective horror stories, etc. All of these techniques that we have been talking about here, right? Um, so those are all effective for running a horror RPG game. RPG already stands for game. Running a horror RPG. That doesn't change. And a lot of the horror advice is about that those types of techniques. The mechanical techniques you tend to find in video games. These are all techniques in video games. Very important, right? Rely on restriction and denial. That is much more difficult to pull off in a role playing game because in a role playing game, taking away player choices and player options doesn't have nearly as positive an effect as it has in video games. I mean, in video games, it has a negative effect, but that negative effect is desired in this particular context, right? You don't want to take away player agency, but in a video game, partially messing with or denying player agency can make things more desperate if the player understands that this is in service of feeling scared and terrified. Are you talking about to YouTube and streaming? Um, no, I'm talking about like running a tabletop role playing game, right? And you play that as a group. You have a game master, and then you have several players playing characters. And when you're a game master running a horror game, um, you need to make the players scared. Just like when you're playing a horror video game, the player sitting at the computer needs to become scared. Right? Same idea. So that's what I'm talking about. Um, so kind of like playing D&D, right? If you're playing D&D, you have a game master with several players, and then if you want to tell a horror story in there, the game master will try to get the players scared because that is what horror is about. Which, by the way, D&D is not necessarily ideal to tell horror stories because of the game's design. But we'll get into not that specifically, but we'll get into how Don't Rest Your Head is really good about that. Um, Loss of control or loss of options in a role playing game is far less effective than in a video game, right? It can work to a certain degree, but it's much better if you set up the game, if you design the game system in such a way that the options are already limited from the beginning, than if you give the players lots of options and then just suddenly take them away. Talking to YouTube and your stream? Uh oh. No, I'm not on YouTube. I have my chat open. I have my chat open so I can see you chatting, but I also have my main screen with all of this text on here that I'm writing right now. That's why like now I'm looking at my main screen and now I'm looking at chat. Right? So this is what's happening. Um yeah. So I can read what is going on. Um where was I? No, it's okay. It's okay. I can understand that it's a bit confusing if like the model keeps shifting back and forth like this. Um, right. So loss of control is a lot more difficult to do in a role playing game. It helps if you have mechanized loss of options or loss of control. There are some horror games that do that very brilliantly. Um, but it it doesn't work. You have to be a lot more careful about that in a role playing game than in a video game. So so the what I'm hold on. Okay, so essentially when I look at Don't Rest Your Head, right? I see okay, all the narrative techniques still work, but are largely not completely, but largely independent of the game system, right? So it doesn't fully matter what game system you use. You can always use these narrative effects, right, in how to tell a horror story. But here's the big thing: mechanical design Oops. Of don't rest your head. Uh, also creates horror. And I will go into that in a bit more detail after the ad break. Um, and I do need to be right back real quick, actually. So I will use this right now. Oh, hello. Yeah, okay. So I'll use this real quick. Be right back, and then I will see you after the ad break, and then I will go into what I mean with this. All right. So yeah, I'll see you in a couple minutes.
Endure. In enduring, grow strong.
All right, are we back? I think we're back. Okay. Um. So mechanical design. Welcome back. Thank you. The mechanical design of Don't Rest Your Head creates horror, which means by using the mechanics. Let me write this a bit cleaner. Just by using the mechanics, players experience tension, fear, etc. Like all those fun emotions that horror is supposed to. Oh no. Um, all those fun emotions that horror is supposed to evoke. Right? Call of Duty. Yeah, I don't know how comfortable I am with that. I have to see. I really don't know. Um, so maybe not. But um, yeah, I that's okay. It's okay. I didn't establish this before. It's you're good. It's all fine. Um, I and again, I never had to make a decision on that, so it's all good. Don't worry. All right. Right. So it's not just by playing through a horror story do the players get scared, but by using the mechanics, the players will get scared. Right. And this is this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing because if you've been here a couple times, or maybe follow some other or listen to some other game designers who share this opinion with me, I am a very, very firm believer that game mechanics should support and enhance what the game is about, right? As much as possible. So, this having the mechanics create horror for the players is what a horror game mechanic should do. Right? So, this is what I've been talking about the whole time. And this is amazing. This is why I feel uh hold on, where did this go? Okay. Why is this here we go. Have a great day or night. I hope you have fun. Take care. Oh, you have to go? Okay. No problem. Thank you for hanging out. And thank you for being here. Always very appreciated. You too. Have a good day or night or wherever you may be. And yeah. See you around. Bye bye. Okay. I need to create a new layer. Uh there we go. Okay. Thank you. It's night here? Okay, then have a very, very good night. And yeah, thanks for coming by. All right. Am I on the correct layer? I'm on the correct layer. All right. Thank you for the stream. Yeah, thank you for being here. Um, so in order to see if the mechanics actually support what the game is about, we have to look at what is the game actually about, right? So we have to look at the design goal of the game and then use that to check if the mechanics actually support this design goal. So what is Don't Rest Your Head about? Right? So, Don't Rest Your Head, is a game where you play an insomniac, right? Um, so you, for whatever reason, your character has been awake for a long time, several days, and then at some point, something clicked, right? And then you became capital A awake, and that allowed you to see uh all of the hidden nightmare stuff that people who sleep cannot see, right? So you see extra doors that lead into the mad city. You see nightmares walking about. You see strange things that can't be, right? All of these fun things that make for this kind of supernatural horror. And um so you you open up your eyes to a new world, to the mad city, to the nightmares, to all of these strange things going on. And that is both fascinating and horrific because you see the nightmares, but now the nightmares are paying attention to you and they're hunting you. They want you, right? What do you do? Well, luckily, when you became capital A awake, you also gained some sort of supernatural, horrific power, right? That you can use to fend off the nightmares or to get away and to stay safe, relatively safe. Um, However, using this power risks madness. So it's a Faustian bargain, right? And you cannot fall asleep. If you fall asleep, that's a fate worse than death, right? The game title itself, Don't Rest Your Head. Do not rest. Do not give in to exhaustion. Do not fall asleep. You will be fighting exhaustion constantly, but you cannot fall asleep, right? This is your life now. Um and that's basically what the game is about. So what is the game about? It's I want to summarize it as horror superheroes because the powers you can get are kind of sort of superheroic. Horror superheroes with madness inducing powers who fight off nightmares and exhaustion. This is what the game is about, right? This is the core conceit of the game. When you're playing this game, this is what you're doing. How is the game about that? Right? How is the game about that? So you can say, sure, when you're playing this game, this is what the game is about. But what in the game design makes the game actually about the thing you claim it is about? Very, very important question. And if you've been paying attention, if you've watched some of these design workshops, tabletop workshops, these are the basic questions, the high level questions that you ask at the beginning of a design, right? At the beginning of ideation, these are the questions you ask. So now we look into the design of Don't Rest Your Head. How is the game about that? So the game or this kind of uh, horror is there are various types of horror that you are facing here. So you are facing uh, you have various horrors, and then I will look at how the game design is about that. So you have um, the horror of inevitable doom, right? You can see the train wreck, or you can see the cliff that you're driving off of, and there's not much you can do to change the course of that. You are heading closer and closer and closer to that cliff, and at some point you'll go over it. Right? So that's the horror of inevitable doom. Metal Star Studio. Hello, how are you doing? Welcome. Think I've heard of this game? Uh it's not super well known. It is quite small, but yeah, it is a super fun game. Really, really great. And my favorite tabletop role playing game. So yeah, if you've heard of this, um that's awesome. I love that. But if you haven't played it, then now you'll get to learn a bit about the design. Um, but yeah, welcome. How are you doing? I do suggest though, like if you are into tabletop RPGs in general, if you're into horror games specifically, or just want to see some really great design, uh, you can get this game. Right, the PDF is like $5. Uh, that's yeah, just buy it. It is such amazing design, and if you are at all into role playing game design, I consider this game to be a must read. Um, I have been really inspired in my own design by the things this game does, and it it is absolutely elegant and does some really good things, and it shows you how you can use mechanics to really drive home the point of what the game is about. And so, yeah, if you like playing the game is super fun, it's super easy. Uh and yeah, design wise, this game has a lot to offer. Morkborg is what got me into playing making TTRPGs. Yeah, Morkborg is also a huge name. I have to check that one out in more detail. Definitely. I've kind of skimmed it here and there and heard a lot about it, but yeah, I have to get into Morkborg at some point as well. There are a lot of really great RPGs that have some excellent pieces of design. The most unserious game ever. Yeah. That's kind of the impression I got. It was a bit confusing at first looking at the game. I was like, wait, what is happening? But yeah. Um but I still think I tell players death is a mechanic. Uh it should be. It definitely should be. um that's another topic I want to cover on this series on Tabletop Workshop. Player character death. That's a whole session in and of itself. I already have some ideas I want to talk about there, but that's a topic for another time. Um right. But what I like about Don't Rest Your Head specifically is I mean a lot of games have great design, but most of very often when you look at that, it's this particular mechanic is really well designed in the scope of the greater game, right? um or this little bit, it uses this new mechanic, or it uses a mechanic in a new way, in a really innovative way. That is really cool. So check that out if you want to get some ideas on what is possible, right? And a lot of games have that. They have like this one specific mechanic or this one system or there's one new way of using things that is really cool and good to see if you are into design. But don't rest your head. In my opinion, the entire game is good design, not just good, great design. Right? It's not there's this one mechanic that's good. No, the entire game as a cohesive whole is amazingly designed. Um, so yeah, that's why I consider this to be a must read, because you read it and you go, yeah, no, this is a complete package, and it 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 just functions together. Everything works together. In the words of Todd Howard, it just works. Um, so yeah, you have the horror of inevitable doom, which is fighting off the exhaustion. You have the horror of no good choices, right? Which is essentially, do I use my madness inducing powers to fight off the nightmares, but that risks going mad from using my powers? Or do I not use the powers, but then risk the nightmares getting to me? Right? Neither of those are great choices. So that is also in there. And then you have the horror uh, um, of losing control, right? Of despair, of losing hope, of things getting um, more desperate, of things of things not going your way anymore, right? Of being in over your head, that kind of idea. Um, so these are the three types of horror that the game presents to you. And how does the game system make sure the game is actually about these three types of horror? To do that, we have to kind of look at the design of Don't Rest Your Head um, from the ground up, in a way. So, how does Don't Rest Your Head work? Right. How does the mechanic work? So, hold on, let me pick this color. Uh, the system of Don't Rest Your Head. Okay, so Don't Rest Your Head is really just it's two parts. The first part is more narrative, where you answer some questions about your character, right? Like, what has been keeping you awake, right? Why are you an insomniac? Uh, what do you want to do? What do you are you trying to achieve? What is the danger you're facing right now, right? To get an impetus into the story. What is your madness talent? What is this supernatural power that you have? So some more narrative bits. And then you have the mechanical bits of a relatively uh, complex one. It has several moving parts, but the moving parts are not difficult to understand. So it's not difficult, but it is a resolution system with several moving parts, and everything is tied to this resolution system. So you get essentially a d6 dice pool dice pool system, right? So you roll a bunch of d6s, and this particular dice pool system is um every die, right? Every whoops, every oh my god, my handwriting. Every die has 50-50 chance, right?
of being a pass or a fail. And you need to collect a certain amount of passes to succeed on your task overall, right? So say you're attempting a task and the GM says, okay, this task is difficulty 3. Then you roll a bunch of d6s, and each die has a 50-50 chance of being a pass or fail, and then you need to get at least 3 passes in all of your dice um, to succeed on the roll, right? A lot of games use this system. Shadowrun, for instance, uses this system, right? You roll a bunch of d6s, every 5 or a 6, so it's not quite 50-50, but every 5 or a 6 is a pass, and then you compare the number of passes you got to the difficulty of the task, and then you either succeed or fail. Burning Wheel uses this system. Genesis uses this system. Legend of the Five Rings, 5th edition. I want to say 5th edition, 4th edition as well, I guess. 7th Sea and so on. I think they all use this system, right? Where you roll a bunch of dice, and then some dice count as passes, and then you need to hit a certain minimum number of passes. So far, so good, right? Nothing special. But how do you build this dice pool this dice pool that you have? And that is the important part. So you have different types of dice, and you need to use when you're using physical dice, you need to use dice that you can tell apart. So either dice of different colors or different shapes. Not shapes, D6s, there are only so many shapes. Different sizes, maybe, right? Other markings, whatever, to tell them apart. So you have 3 discipline dice. Discipline. And these are essentially your basic ability to do things, right? These are the thing. You always roll them on a check, and they just represent your innate skill, your ability, your perseverance, etc., etc. Then you have between 0 and 6 exhaustion. Um, and exhaustion is uh, a stat or a fixed number. So if you have 3 exhaustion, you will always roll 3 exhaustion dice on every check. If you have 5 exhaustion, you always roll 5. If you have 0, you roll 0, etc. Right, so that is relatively static. The exhaustion number can change. There are various ways it can change, of course, but that is basically, if you have this number, you roll this amount of dice. And then you have between 0 and 6 madness dice. And madness dice you can always choose when you start with a roll. When you elect to do a roll, right? You can say, okay, for this roll I will use 0 madness dice, or for this roll I will use 5 madness dice, or I will use 2, or whatever, right? Before you roll the dice, you can always freely say how many dice you add. There's one, not exception, but like one special rule where if you are using your madness talent, you must use madness dice, and the power or intensity of the madness talent that you want to use determines how many dice you have to use, right? So if you have a madness talent, for example, of you can take a piece of chalk, draw an outline of a door on a wall, and then step through that door as if it were real and get somewhere else. That is a madness talent. If you draw a chalk outline of a door on a wall to get to the room that's literally on the other side of that wall, that is 1 madness die, right? That is a very simple use of this talent. If you draw a door on a wall to open into someone else's mind to find their most buried secrets, that would be a 6 madness die use. of the of your power, right? So that kind of you are relatively free in how you want to use your madness talent, but that determines how many dice you have to use. Right? You can always use more, of course, but that's kind of how you build your pool. Now, if this was the only thing in the game, right? The GM just says, okay, this task is difficulty 3, and then you build your pool and roll and hope to get 3 passes, or the GM says, oh, this task is difficulty 5, build your pool, roll, and hope to get 5 passes. That would be uh, adequate, but not great for this particular purpose. Instead, the difficulty is the GM also rolling dice. And the GM on the other side rolls between 0 and however many, right? X pain. Right? So a very simple task might be 1 or 2 pain dice. A dangerous or complex task might be something like 4, 5, 6 is already getting very high. If you're facing down one of the top nightmares in the city, it might be 12 or 15 pain dice, right? So that's really, really high. If you look at these numbers on the left, the maximum number of dice the player can have in their pool at any one time is 15. Right? They cannot go over 15. That's not possible. So if the GM also rolls 15 dice, that's like hitting the absolute top limit. And the GM dice work just like the player dice, right? The GM rolls dice, and the dice have a 50% chance of being a pass or a fail. And what you're doing is every roll is a contested roll against the GM. So you're comparing whoever gets the most passes. That player wins the check. And then if the player wins, they succeed on their task. If the GM wins, the player fails on their task, or the player character fails on their task. And once you introduce these contested rolls with large dice pools and all of these factors in there, your puny human brain is no longer able to guess or intuit the probabilities involved. Right? If it was just a static difficulty of 3, then your brain can still kind of go, okay, if each die has a 50% chance, then if I roll 6 dice, that probably means I have a pretty good chance of succeeding, right? But if the GM says, no, 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 I'm rolling 6 pain dice, each one has a 50% chance of succeeding. And suddenly, everything is up in the air. The GM could get really unlucky and roll a single pass. Or all 6 of the GM dice could end up being passes. And all of a sudden, you have to take this whole range of possibilities into account and go, how safe do I want to play it? If the GM is rolling 6 dice, is it enough if I also roll 6 dice? Or do I want to roll, I don't know, 10 to be on the safe side? Right? And suddenly, you can no longer intuit these probabilities. And that is part of the horror of losing control. So, the mechanic of contested dice pools is part of what gives you the horror of losing control, because you can no longer estimate, or can no longer, what's the word, not calculate, but can no longer foretell, something like that, a good probability of if you will succeed or not. But that's not all. You would think, well, okay, if if I can roll up to 15 dice every roll, why would I not just do that? Why wouldn't I just bump all of my stats up and constantly roll 15 dice? And then the GM also rolls 15 dice, and then we have 15 versus 15. Ooh, 30 dice hitting the table all the time. That's. Why shouldn't I do that? Because you don't necessarily want to roll all the dice. A die, so the more dice you roll, the higher the chance of getting successes or passes. Yes, that is a good thing. But you also compare a second thing. So you compare passes versus passes to see who succeeds, who wins. But you also compare the pools, the numbers you rolled in the pools to see which pool dominates, right? And that is done by comparing the numbers of the dice, or not of the dice, but the numbers you rolled on the dice. And just like how more dice equals more chance for success, more dice also equals more chance of that pool dominating. So if you roll 3 discipline dice and 1 madness die, the chance of discipline dominating is relatively high. If you roll 3 discipline dice and 6 madness dice, the chance of madness dominating is much higher than that of discipline dominating. And as the name tells you, you do not want madness to dominate. You don't want exhaustion to dominate. You definitely do not want pain to dominate. You want discipline to dominate. Because that means things are under control. You are getting your way. Right? But you only have 3 discipline dice. That number is not going to change. All the other pools are likely going to end up bigger. That is intentional. um, so when exhaustion dominates, you get +1 exhaustion. Oh no, that is really bad. If you ever get more than 6 exhaustion, your player character falls asleep. And as we have established before, falling asleep in this game as a capital A awake person is a fate worse than death. You don't want that. So if you're at 6 exhaustion dice, chances of you falling asleep every time you roll are right there. You can feel them in your hand as you are holding those 6 exhaustion dice. Right? And that is the horror of inevitable doom. Right? Constantly rising exhaustion. So because rolling dice is such a tactile thing, if you then look at the pool you have to build and you pick up those 6 exhaustion dice getting ready to roll, you really do not want to roll that because the chance of you falling asleep is tangible in more ways than one. If you roll madness, you go right? You go into a mad episode. You completely lose control of your character. Your character does something, right? Destroy things, run away, hurt people, whatever it is, right? That is based on just going nuts from overwhelming horror. And then comes to a while later and then has to deal with the fallout of that. So that is another instance of horror of losing control, right? So, madness episodes. And if you pick up your 6 madness dice, again, you can feel them right there in your hand, and you go, the chance of me snapping and going into a madness episode is right here in my hand. I can feel them, right? if you go onto too many of these episodes, your character's mind slowly starts breaking, and you get that much closer to becoming a nightmare. So, again, horror of inevitable doom. Um, Character slowly going mad. Here's the thing. When you are comparing pools, you are not just comparing your own, you are also comparing pain, because pain can also dominate, right? It functions just like any other pool, and you compare the numbers across all four, up to all four, right? Discipline, exhaustion, madness, pain, and see which of these pools dominates. And you really don't want pain to dominate, because that's like the name itself says, no, this is gonna suck. This is really gonna suck. Um, and then you go, all right, if the GM is rolling 6 pain dice, do I roll 6 madness dice and even out the chance of madness or pain dominating? Which one do I want more? Right? Do I want this to hurt, or do I want my character to go mad? Neither of these are great choices, but you have to make this choice. And this is the very act of building your dice pool is an exercise in no good choices. Right? Um so when the GM just smiles at you and just goes, I am rolling 8 pain dice. And then you look down and go, okay, I have 3 discipline. I can get 3 exhaustion. Do I want to add like 3 or 4 madness? Can I afford to go mad? Is my character in a good situation right now? Is that gonna mess with the story? Do I want that? How important is it for me to succeed on this task? How many dice do I want? Do I want to go all in? You're asking all of these questions just by what dice and how many dice you want to roll. And they are all bad choices. But that is where the tension comes from. That is where the horror comes from. Right? And that happens every single time you roll the dice. Obviously, in a game like this, you don't roll the dice as often as you would in a game like D&D, where every single action demands a die roll. In Don't Rest Your Head, it's more like a every big episode, or maybe like once in a scene, or once or twice in a scene do you roll to see how the scene develops and concludes, right? Um, but that's still a lot of rolls over the course of a session, and a lot of opportunities for all of these unpleasant pools to dominate, right? Uh, just for completeness' sake, maintain control, and this will hurt. Okay. Um, so you can see, just by engaging with the mechanics, the basic resolution system, the core resolution system of this game, the game delivers on these types of horror that it's trying to make you feel, right? Um, and that's that's not even all of it. Like, if it was just this, I would already say, okay, that is a brilliant implementation of uh of the mechanics to support and enhance what the game is about, this is already really, really good. But wait, there's more. So, for those who have been around a little bit um, in design and in this tabletop workshop, know that I absolutely love games that have graded success and fail forward mechanics. So there is. Hold on, let me write this in this color. So there is graded success. Is there graded success? There is no real graded success. Oh, no, there is. Actually, there is. Graded success plus fail forward. So what do I mean? Graded success is essentially where you don't just have a binary succeed fail result, right? Graded success is where you have different grades of these results. Typically, most games that implement this have the type of you get just a full normal success, then you get a success with a cost. So you get what you set out to do, but things go wrong somewhere along the line, and now you have complications to deal with. And you have a fail with consequences. So you don't get what you want, and your life just became more complicated. You have to deal with this, right? And the idea of consequences, things happening on a result, is a type of fail forward. In a lot of games, including D&D, to use as the most well-known example, you have neither graded success nor do you have fail forward. Success is just yes or no. And when you fail, all that does is basically nothing happens. All right. So when you fail a task, if you're trying to pick a lock on a door and you fail your pick lock check, the result is just nothing happens. The lock doesn't open. That's it. Done. Right? And now the player has to think of a new thing to do to push the story forward. Right? Their original plan of in order to continue the story, I need to get through this door. So I plan to pick the lock. The lock couldn't be picked. Now the story can't continue. Now I need to find a different way to push the story forward. Um, Maybe I will start bashing down the door, right? And then you fail to bash down the door. Oh heck, okay, now I have to find a third idea. And at some point you might run out of ideas and then the story just ends. Right? That is what happens on a null result of nothing happens when you fail a check. Um, Fail forward is always you don't succeed on your task, but something else happens. And that makes the story move forward, right? Continue going along. And makes the story go somewhere. And that's fail forward. And that is often done with these consequences. So, um, Don't Rest Your Head has both of these as well. It has the normal success fail, right? Um, and that is just how many passes each person gets. If the player gets more passes than the GM, or they tie, on a tie, the player also wins, um, then they succeed on their task. If the GM gets more passes on their dice than the player, they fail. Okay. But there are also consequences. And because there are 4 dice pools, there are 4 types of consequences, right? There's the discipline consequence. There is the exhaustion. That is horrible spelling. Hold on. Loves connecting these for some reason. Sorry about that. Right, there's the discipline consequence. There's the exhaustion consequence. Madness consequence. And pain consequence. And Not only do these give you a mechanical effect, all of these give you an actual mechanical effect if the pool dominates, they also give you a narrative prompt, right? Mechanical plus narrative. So if discipline dominates, you get a certain mechanical effect, but at the same time, the narrative prompt is the player character maintains control. They can kind of they have more input in how the task continues, even if they fail, right? If discipline dominates, they still maintain control over their failure. They don't get what they want, but things don't go to hell, right? If exhaustion dominates, you have a mechanical effect, you get an extra point of exhaustion, but the narrative effect is also this costs you a lot. This costs you something, right? Either physically, this was strenuous physically, or it costs you mentally or emotionally, right? But it has to take something out of you, and you have to be like exhausted after you are done with this task, right? Um, in however you want to interpret exhaustion. Madness means things go out of control, uh, and things go crazy and wild, right? Um, and when pain dominates, yeah, this is gonna suck. This will hurt you. Um, you will not enjoy this, basically, right? And those are the narrative prompts, not only like to tell you how the action proceeds and also how the narrative continues, right? Who gets to set up? Let me check um what they say. Da-da-da-da-da. Domination, pool domination. Where do they have that? Uh, no, hold on. When discipline dominates. Where is this? Discipline. Dice. Discipline. When discipline dominates. Uh, yeah, the situation remains under control. So it could be okay, the player doesn't get what they want, but they get to set the tone for what comes next, right? Things like that. Whereas if madness dominates, the player definitely does not get to dictate what comes next, right? What comes next is going to be wild, maybe. The Mad City starts seeping in, right? And things go more chaotic and so on. So that is really, really good. Right? You have success and fail, and you have different consequences that not only have a mechanical effect, but also a very clear narrative prompt. Um, so, and this is just the resolution system. And if this was the whole thing that the game had going for it, I would say this is excellent. This is really, really brilliant, elegant design. It covers all of the bases. It really emphasizes and supports and enhances the various types of horror that it wants to um, portray, and it helps you run it, the game. Right, this graded success and consequence fail forward thing is a way as a tool to help the game master run the game and come up with good ideas, and the players as well. Really, come up with ideas of how the narrative can develop. Right. So if this was the entire game, I would already say this is superb. This is elegant. Guess what? There's more. There is more. The game also has an inbuilt, mechanically inbuilt pacing system. Pacing system for tension curves. What is that? What the heck did I just say? So, a tension curve is basically in any kind of story that relies on any sort of tension. So, horror, thriller, action, right? Um, even things like uh, not necessarily all genres, but a lot of genres rely on this tension, right? Where tension slowly rises, then falls a bit, then rises, then falls a bit, then rises, then falls a bit, and hits these peaks. Right? Tension goes up, hits a peak, some sort of climax. Maybe not the main climax, but like, oh my god, what is gonna happen? And then we get a small breather. The tension rises and rises, hits a peak, and then we get a small breather. And then tension rises and rises, hits a higher peak. So effectively, you get a curve that functions like this. So you have tension. Oh my goodness, horrible. So you have tension on one axis like this, and you have, let me draw a more straight line, time, right? And then the tension curve essentially goes like that, right? Where you have to build up tension, then release it a little bit, so that when you build up tension again, it becomes more effective, and then release it a little bit, give a breather, then build up even more tension, right? It's this edge of the seat thing that you want audiences to have. And then you finally hit the big climax at some point, and then you get the denouement ending, etc. So this is storytelling 101, right? Um Anywhere you look at storytelling in writing, in filmmaking, in whatever, right? This is storytelling 101, tension curve. Right, tension rises a bit, falls a bit, rises a bit, falls a bit, right? And so on and so forth. This game has an inbuilt pacing system for tension curves. A mechanical system for pacing for tension curves. So it's not just this nebulous storytelling writing tip that you give game masters and say, oh, be sure to keep the tension curve in mind, build up tension a little bit, then release it a little bit, then build it up a bit more, and make sure your story follows the tension curve. Good luck, have fun. No, 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 no. This game gives you a mechanic tied to the core resolution mechanic that does this for you. That does the pacing for you. How does it do that? So, when pain dominates, let me make sure I got this 100% correct, that I'm not lying to you. Pain dice. When pain dominates. Yes. So, when pain dominates, and this is why you don't really want pain to dominate, because it increases the tension overall. The GM gets what is called a coin of despair, right? And at any point during any check that the players make, the GM can spend a bunch of coins of despair to tweak the result in their favor. Right? They can add or remove dice, right, to the various pools to tweak the result in a way they want. They can cause a certain pool to dominate, or they can maybe even make success more or less likely, and so on. Right. Um, and that's what they can do with coins of despair. Now, obviously, the more coins of despair the GM has, the more they can manipulate a single roll. There are limits. If the GM spends one coin of despair on a roll, they can manipulate it slightly. If the GM has 4 coins of despair sitting on the table in front of them, every time the player rolls, they see that stack of coins of despair and go, is this gonna suck? Is the GM gonna spend all of these and make my life hell? Yes or no? And that builds incredible amounts of tension. So every time pain dominates, the GM gets one of these coins. And the beautiful thing is, the GM doesn't have to touch the coins at all. They just have to be sitting there on the table, visible to the players. And then the players will look at them and go, oh no, this is not going well. The game paces itself. It's brilliant. It is so brilliant. There's an ad break coming up. I will take a breather before I gush all over this game. But like, oh my god, it has all of the parts that you want. But yeah, I will summarize after the ad break. I will summarize and say
Endure.
clarify
In enduring, grow
why this is so
strong.
brilliant, why this is so elegant. Oh my goodness. So I hope it's slightly becoming clear why this is my absolute favorite game. Um it's super easy. Right? All the rules fit on a single page and not even a full size like letter or A4 page, like half size page. Right? The rule summary is literally one page. That's it. That's the whole thing. So you can learn the game in a couple of minutes. You can learn the game while playing. Right? Um so that makes it even better. So this is why I consider it to be must read for designers. Um get this game. I'm not paid by Evil Hat. I'm not sponsored or anything. I'm just a fan. um, I love this game so much. I've played it a bunch in the past. Um, improvised entire sessions, like 3-4 hour sessions, off of nothing but what the players gave me with their characters, and just improvised entire sessions with it, and it went really well. And that's what you can do with this game. Yeah. It's really good. So, like seeing all of these parts here is just reinforces the design brilliance. More people need to know this game. Seriously, very funny uh, as a story. Um, what is the company called right now that is doing Daggerheart? I forgot. But Daggerheart, right, which is the new role-playing game system that Critical Role will use, right? They're moving off of D&D into their own system, Daggerheart. And Daggerheart's design has something akin to Don't Rest Your Head. And in fact, one review of the current playtest package of Daggerheart um, mentioned Don't Rest Your Head. It said no one at the design company right now designing Daggerheart probably read this game, Don't Rest Your Head. Um, they should. It's a brilliant game. But it has a lot of reminiscence to it. But yeah, okay, welcome back everyone. So yeah, Coins of Despair. So whenever pain dominates, so pain is like pain dominating is not an immediate effect. All the other things are immediate effect. Pain dominating is a long-term effect that can really, really ruin your day as the game goes on. Right? So that is what you are balancing between. Do I want the immediate negative effect of madness or exhaustion? Or do I want a long term, possibly much bigger negative effect of pain? Right? That's the no good choices that you have here. And so yeah, the pacing system. The coins of despair pace the game without the GM needing to do anything. Right? The GM doesn't have to spend a single coin of despair. The GM can completely forget about them, basically. But as long as those coins are there on the table and the players know what they do, the tension is there. Right? If there's one coin on the table, we're over here, right? Tension is rising here. There's two coins on the table, we're here. If there's three coins on the table, we're here. We're four coins on the table, and so on, we're here. And then the peak is the GM spending those coins, like letting all hell break loose. And then, if coins are spent, they turn into coins. Oops, coin of hope that the players can use to get a bit of a reprieve, right? To improve their situation a little bit, just a little bit. But they can only do that if the GM spends coins of despair, right? And then we get this reprieve down here. This is the coins of hope. And then the players spend the coins of hope, and then coins of despair start piling up again, and so on. So we get this very natural tension, rising and falling of tension built into the system, right? And the coins of despair are also an extremely powerful GM tool for the GM to control the flow of the story. When and if the GM chooses to spend these coins and how many they choose to spend influences how how the story will develop, how horrific things will get, right? How dangerous, how terrifying, but also how much of a reprieve the players will get. If the GM only ever spends one coin at a time, right? Sure, it makes life a bit more difficult for the player characters every now and then. But the player characters get a continuous supply of coins of hope that they can use to constantly alleviate these situations somewhat. If the GM saves up a whole bunch of coins and then spends them all in one go, uh, things will go bad. Sure, afterwards, the players will have a whole bunch of coins of hope to spend and make their lives better, but they first have to go through this crucible, right? And that is a very powerful and very intuitive tool for the GM to uh to control the pacing. So the game paces itself and it allows for a lot of GM control. Best of both worlds. Um but wait, there's more. Basically, I already touched on this in the ad break a little bit. The game is super easy to learn, right? Uh so these are just extras that make the game extra appealing, just additionally very, very good, very great, right? Very easy rules can be learned in minutes. Seriously, can be learned in minutes. I have taught this game to multiple groups of players because I ran this game with multiple groups who have never played this game before. And all it took was like 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning of the game explaining the basic conceit, explaining how you create your character, what the different dice kind of represent. And then the rest you can teach as the dice come into the game, right? As things happen. And provides plenty. That is a horrible L. Plenty of narrative prompts for creativity / improvisation. So not only are there some very good character prompts in there that the players fill out, which both give the players a good idea of who their character is and how to play them, and also give the GM a lot of fuel to put into the adventure, right? As I mentioned, the consequences here all have narrative prompts for every check to help you steer the game in certain directions and help you come up with things of how the narrative can develop. And so basically, the game almost runs itself, which is what you want a lot of the time, right? A great role playing games take a huge load off of the GM's shoulders and do a lot of the heavy decision making and all of the coming up with ideas, or not coming up with ideas, but providing prompts um for you, right? It's the difference between being given a blank sheet of paper and saying write something versus being given a sheet with a prompt written on top saying like uh describe the thoughts of a recovering alcoholic returning to their favorite bar. Something like that, right? And that second thing is a very powerful prompt that probably has a lot of ideas churning right now. Right? If you have that prompt, you can write something. You have your creative juices start flowing. Whereas if you just have the blank piece of paper, you go write something, anything. You're like, I don't know what to do. Right? And that's what this is. That's what these consequences and narrative prompts give you, right? If the narrative could develop in any direction after a check, and the game tells you, well, no, actually describe how the narrative, how the story becomes more crazy, how more wild, more out of control, right? How madness starts influencing things. Then you go, okay, okay, I can deal with that. I can have ideas for that. Rather than, oh, nothing happens, come up with something, anything, right? That's the blank piece of paper. And this is what you want, really, because it takes a lot of the heavy work off of the GM's shoulders so that the GM can focus on all of the other tasks that they have to do, and also gives players a lot of ideas of what they can do, right? How they can play their character, how they can put their character into the story. So, on top of all of this elegant mechanical design that gives you exactly what the game says it is about, that helps you with narrative prompts, that gives you the tension curve and runs the tension curve by itself, it is also very easy to learn and run. Right? The main book is like what, 100 pages? Not even 75 pages or so, right? It's 75 half-sized pages. This whole thing is roughly the size of a DVD case. Um, and half of the book, or a large part of the book, is just setting, right? How to frame a scene, like some storytelling tips, how to frame a scene, a gameplay example. And then the second half of the book is just setting, right? Giving you lots of awesome ideas for the Mad City, for various nightmares, for how to the specific brand of horror that this game is trying to create, and so on. So the rules and playing guides, GM section and such, is just the first half of the book. 30 pages. That's it. 30 half-sized pages that can be summarized on one page. It's brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant. Like S tier design. This game is criminally underrated, is criminally unknown. Um, Everyone who wants to get into role-playing game design, and I'm saying this with my full chest, this is a must-read game. Don't rest your head. And the PDF is $5. So get it. Right. I have the physical copy. I also have a physical copy of the supplement, Don't Lose Your Mind, which gives you a load of madness talents, right? One for every letter of the alphabet, with a lot of amazing ideas and some ideas on how to use madness talents in your game, how to implement them, how to unlock their full potential, and so on. Um, so it's also really good. So I have both of these books. Um, but yeah, just the core book is already really really great. So yeah, Don't Rest Your Head, an absolute banger of a game.
Raiding
Oh hey,
You must gather your party before
hello,
venturing forth.
Fishgal Mora. Hi, Melody. Hello, how's it going? Mythogenesis, welcome. Hi. What were you doing? You were doing just chatting. Okay, what were you chatting about? I am intrigued. But yeah, I hope your stream went well. I hope everything was fine. Welcome, Raiders. Welcome, welcome. My name is Cheechan. I am a Bard VTuber, and I usually stream old games and or role playing games. Fish Gang Raid, awesome. Nice, nice. How is it going? Today we are doing some tabletop role playing game design. So I do this every week, where I have a section called the Tabletop Workshop, where I look at the design of various tabletop role playing games, or design my own things, or talk about various things in tabletop design. So I have been playing uh, tabletop role playing games for a quarter century, and I have been designing them for about as long. So this is basically me just yeah, giving you all the things that I have learned over the decades. It be going, that is always good. Hope you're having a good day, night, afternoon. I have 1:40 p.m. as it says on the clock. Yeah, 1:40 p.m. So it's good. It's a bit warm today. Uh, so my temperature is showing the wrong city for whatever reason. What do we have for temperature today? It's not responding. Okay, nearly 1 a.m. Oh, oh yeah. So if you need to go to bed, if you need to go rest or anything, or I don't know, get something to drink, take a shower, whatever it is you do, please do so. Don't, thank you very much for the raid in any case. But yeah, if any of your raiders need to, I do gotta go to bed. Yeah, please do. Please get your rest. Thank you very, very much for the raid. I very much appreciate it. Anyone else who wishes to stay and learn a bit about tabletop role playing game design, you are very welcome to stay here and listen to me ramble. Right now, meet the not interested viewer. Welcome. Does 7W count as a tabletop game? 7W? I'm not sure I know that. I love the name, by the way. 7W. I have to check that out. It's showing me light bulbs. Hold on. Seven Wonders. Oh, Seven Wonders? Do you mean that one? No, wait. Is it a website? Yeah. Wait, okay, so do you mean Seven Wonders? Because I'm seeing multiple different results right now. There's apparently also a way to play games online on 7W. I don't know what that is. If you mean Seven Wonders, then yes, Seven Wonders is definitely a tabletop game. Tabletop games include board games and card games and things like that. Yeah. Okay, Seven Wonders. Yeah, okay. Seven Wonders is definitely a tabletop game, but it is not a tabletop role-playing game. Tabletop role-playing game is like D&D. That's the realm of what I'm talking about. But D&D is by far not the only role-playing game out there. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of role-playing games that exist. Um, D&D is, yes, it is the biggest, but it is by far not the only one. And there are many really brilliant games out there that deserve more love and deserve more recognition, and that have really good design things going on for them, right? So, in fact, today I'm talking about my favorite role-playing game, my favorite tabletop role-playing game, Don't Rest Your Head, which is here. Don't Rest Your Head, which is a horror role-playing game. Right. So we talked a little bit about what horror games are trying to do, right? The horror games are trying to give horror to the players, not to the characters in the game. And then how does Don't Rest Your Head do this? And we just talked about the design of this game, right? How the game is about these different types of horror: the horror of inevitable doom, the horror of no good choices, the horror of losing control, and how the mechanics of this game reinforce these types of horrors that it's trying to tell, right? So how the very mechanical design of the game actually helps with telling uh, telling this horror. So in summary, I can go over it again. Very much in summary. Um, just because again, I'm going to use this. This is the other part I'm going to do. I'm going to use this for one of my own designs. As the next part of the stream. So just to look at what does the game actually do. So the game is, yeah, a horror game. You are a person, an insomniac, whose mind has suddenly clicked into place. They can now see the mad city and see nightmares and see all of these horrific things around them. But the nightmares start paying attention to you. So they are starting to hunt you. And you have to use your madness-induced supernatural powers to fight them off, at the risk of going mad. And as the name Don't Rest Your Head implies, you can never ever go back to sleep because that is a fate worse than death, right? So you are playing a horror superhero with madness-inducing powers who fight off both nightmares and exhaustion. That is what the game is about. Right? Talked about the types of horror that it's trying to do. And the mechanics of the game is when you are doing a check, you roll a bunch of six-sided dice. Right? And every die has a chance of being a pass or a fail, and you are collecting passes to beat the GM. So the GM also rolls a bunch of dice, also collecting passes and fails, and you need to get more passes, same or more passes, than the GM. Right? So if you roll 3 dice and the GM rolls 3 dice, right? If you get 3 passes and the GM gets 2, you succeed. If you get 1 and the GM gets 2, you fail. Lurk. All right. Thank you very much for the lurk. And I hope you enjoy your stay. And there are different dice that you can build your pool out of. You have your discipline dice that you always roll. You have exhaustion dice that represent your exhaustion because you're not going to sleep. You have your madness dice that represent the encroaching madness from just being around nightmares and being in the mad city and using your powers. I have a hiccup. Oh my god. And the GM is rolling pain dice to represent, the world being utter crap. And you collect successes or you collect passes and fails, and then your action will either succeed or fail. And then any pool can also dominate. The more dice you have, the more successes you can get. But the more dice you have in a pool, right, the more, the higher the chance as well that it will dominate. And if it dominates, there's a mechanical effect that happens, but also a narrative prompt, right? So that was the basic idea. So you're constantly making this choice of what dice, how many of which dice am I rolling? Um, what pool can I afford to have dominate right now? And how will that affect the story? Right. So you have your constantly rising exhaustion. The character is slowly going mad. The horror of inevitable doom. This is hard coded into the mechanics. You have contested dice pools. Because there are so many dice involved, you can no longer intuit the probabilities. So you're losing control on that. You have your madness episodes when madness dominates, which also makes you lose control. So that is mechanically encoded horror of losing control. And then every time you roll your dice, you are facing bad choices of how many of each dice you have to roll. Because do I go with one madness die or do I go with 6? Either choice is not ideal, right? So every time you roll, you are facing the horror of no good choices. So this is an example, a brilliant example of how mechanics can absolutely drive what the game is about. There's a whole bunch of other stuff as well down here, but that is also brilliant, right? Um, but not as important to what I'm going to do with it, right? So yeah, absolutely brilliant game. I am hoping to run this game on stream at some point with a group, just so everyone can see how this game functions and play. It's good. It's really good. Okay, let's see. If I do this, I have another layer. Awesome. So that was a close to 2 hour analysis of Don't Rest Your Head, the design of Don't Rest Your Head, and why it is absolutely brilliant. I need to turn on the fan a little bit. It is starting to get really hot. Surprising. Come on, what's the weather? Yeah, okay, it's 30 degrees with high humidity. No wonder I'm sitting here just sweating. All right. Um, right. So we looked at the design of Don't Rest Your Head. However, Tabletop Workshop is about me designing things on stream, so you can see what the design process is like, right? Um, so I am going to use ideas inspired by Don't Rest Your Head to implement into a design of my own. Now, I've been tinkering with this design for years, and none of the ideas I've had so far were satisfactory and were doing what I wanted it to do. But I think at the beginning of this week, I got an idea of where I could take this design. So I want to explore it and see if it might do what I wanted to do. Some previous designs just didn't work. They were too convoluted, or when I tested them, they didn't actually produce the kind of gameplay experience that I was hoping for. So maybe this time I have more luck. Now, the easiest way to use Don't Rest Your Head's design in your own work is to hack the game. There are a lot of hacks of this game out there. Things like you can rename the pools and reinterpret what they're about. You can change a bit of how the pools function, how the consequences function mechanically, and so on. Change the context of where you set these mechanics. There are several examples out there, and I have tried that as well, but that didn't quite work out. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some elements of what makes the design work, and don't rest your head, and try and put that into my own thing. Right, so my own design. What is the game about? So when you are starting your ideation of a game, you start with what is the game about, which is essentially the elevator pitch. And for that, I want to pull up a quote from a famous dude called Friedrich Nietzsche. Let me see if I can find the quote. Yeah. So Friedrich Nietzsche, in his book Beyond Good and Evil, wrote, "He who fights monsters should see to it that he himself does not become a monster. And if you gaze for long into an abyss, the abyss gazes also into you." That is the core idea that I want to capture in this design, right? So, characters using ever more desperate or extreme. Whoops. Oh my god, I cannot spell extreme methods to fight monsters, right? The abyss gazes into you, right? So in the process of doing so, they become monsters themselves, right? So this is the core conceit of what the game is about, right? It's about characters who are fighting against some sort of overwhelming odds, some sort of monstrosity, right? And they have to use more and more extreme methods to have a fighting chance. But in using these methods, they also start becoming monsters, right? And their ideals become more extreme and more about fighting the monsters than, I don't know, protecting humanity or whatever it might be, right? Whatever the context might be, the setting, and so on. And it starts to warp their sense of morality and, tunnel vision into fighting the monsters and then, yeah, becoming monsters themselves. So this is the core conceit that I want to capture. It's not easy to capture this. I've tried, but I want to see if I can do it. How is the game about that? Right? So if you claim that your game is about a certain thing, you have to make sure that the design actually makes the game about that thing. Right? If you are trying to have, I don't know, have a game that is about a detective collecting clues and finding, I don't know, the killer of a serial killer by looking at victims and such, and collecting and analyzing clues, etc. Like a very puzzle oriented experience, and then your game design is a first person shooter where you gun down thousands of monsters. Something went wrong. Your game design is not actually about what you are claiming the game to be about. Right? So you have to make sure that your design goal and your actual design mesh. that your actual design leads to the design goal that you have stated. So how is the game about that? So it needs to be PCs facing overwhelming odds. Right? Forced, or, and this is more difficult but more rewarding to pull off, incentivized, yes, to use more extreme methods. And this leads to a warping of beliefs, morals, etc., to turn PCs monstrous. So this is the gameplay that is in here, right? So these are, the first one is relatively easy to put in, right? The PCs are facing overwhelming odds. That is relatively easy to implement into the mechanics. And then the next step is the crux. Incentivize the players to use extreme methods in order to have a fighting chance or beat these overwhelming odds. Right? Extreme methods to even the odds. Right? But then you need some sort of mechanical and narrative consequence fallout for the use of these extreme methods. And that is that the PCs must have certain beliefs or morals that can then be changed and corrupted as the game progresses, right? Okay. How do we do that? So what do the PCs do? What do the PCs do? Not the PCs, what do the players do? How do the players interact with this system? What kind of a fun are they supposed to experience? So the players are supposed to experience, right? Experience downfall of characters, maybe with the addition of, oops, how long can they hold on? Right? How long can they hold on to their humanity, to their beliefs and morals, until they succumb to these extreme methods and become monsters while fighting monsters, right? So that's, when you are playing this game, this is the kind of story, the kind of narrative you are signing up for, right? Everyone at the table needs to be aware and needs to be okay with, this is the type of story we are telling. And this is the type of story we want to experience when we play this game. But also, weigh the odds and the consequences of using or not using extreme methods. So using these extreme methods needs to be a player choice, right? You can't just, or mostly player choice, or the player needs to see it coming, basically. You can't just tell the players, oh yeah, no, your character is totally gonna burn down the village to drive out the demons, even with all the innocents in there. That's totally what they're gonna do now, and then the player gets no say in it. That's not what's supposed to happen. The player needs to be able to make this choice for their character, right? And then the player needs to be able to say, no, my character will not do that because reasons. Or they will say, no, my character would totally do that now because reasons, right? And part of those reasons can, of course, be narrative, but it becomes more powerful and a more immediate consideration if there are also mechanical elements tied into there. Right? If the mechanical consideration is also part of what the player is thinking about when they make the choice of, do I use an extreme method, yes or no? So, so essentially, mechanical element needs to be part of consideration. Right. So, how do we design this? What do we do? So, I've played with a bunch of different designs with this. I'm not going to list all of them here. Some of them I've kind of forgotten. I have them written down somewhere, but I've forgotten them exactly. So, what do we need? For this to function, we need character aspects, and I'm going to call them aspects because I'm borrowing this term from the Fate role-playing game, which has character aspects, which are essentially some like beliefs or background elements, attitudes, and so on of the character that are written as a phrase, and written as like a narrative prompt, right? Another game that I could look into or have looked into for this is 10 Candles, which functions very similarly, where you have characters writing down certain things like which lines are you not willing to cross, and then in the course of the game, crossing set lines because it's necessary to survive, right? So 10 Candles, also an excellent horror game. It's very difficult to play 10 Candles online because of the specific setup to really sell the mood of the game. But definitely worth looking into as well. So these are narrative prompts that are things like beliefs, attitudes, uh, relationships, right, to other PCs or to NPCs and so on. Um, Moral lines or principles, right? Things like that. Um, and you can have some of these on the character, and the whole turning into a monster part of the game is these aspects getting corrupted and turning into more monstrous versions, essentially, right? And then you also need mechanical incentive for pursuing an extreme action. So there needs to be some mechanic in the game that gets activated when the player says, okay, I am going to do this extreme action in the story. I'm going to burn down the village to exorcise the demons or whatever, right? I'm going to burn the village to save the village, essentially. And uh there when the player announces this narrative direction, that needs to trigger and activate the mechanic of you are now doing an extreme action, use me, and this mechanical action needs to be an incentive. So things like higher chance of success and or uh, possibility of great success, right? Not just a normal, oh, I succeeded, but like a critical, oh, I actually managed to defeat the monster, something that I can only do this way, right? Um, so this is why a player would choose the action, but at the same time, right? Uh, chance of, maybe a chance of, maybe guaranteed, I don't know yet. Consequence/fallout. And this thing is the whole you are turning into a monster. Right? This consequence and fallout is you are going to turn into a monster. So these are the two sides that the player is going to weigh against. Like, how desperately do I need this increased chance of success versus how willing am I going to risk my character becoming a monster for this higher chance of success, right? This is the decision I want the player to make, and then either choosing to pursue or not to pursue an extreme action. And so this is the mechanical element that I was talking about. Okay. So what is the idea that I have? The idea that I have is um and I also want to build in some sort of pacing thing. So I don't want players to just go out immediately and just start burning down villages right from the get-go. Right? I want there to be some sort of pacing mechanism in there to make sure the players start out, or the player characters start out human, and then over time, right, turn into monsters. So there needs to be a pacing mechanism. So let me write that down as well. A pacing mechanism, right? Oops, let me write that down over here. Pacing mechanism. Okay. So the mechanics. What do we do? And I'm going to borrow from a whole bunch of different games here. There is this game engine called the Year Zero game engine by Free League, which is a Swedish role-playing game company. Makes a lot of excellent games, and definitely worth checking out as well. But the Year Zero engine is also a D6 dice pool engine. Right? So a D6 dice pool, and to succeed, one, 6 to succeed. Now, rolling a 6 on a 6-sided die is not a really high chance, right? Literally 1 in 6. That's like a 16 point like 16 and 2/3% chance. Not very high. Which means it is difficult to succeed on tasks, even with a lot of dice. Right? To get a 50% chance, 52% chance of success, you need to roll 4 dice. Right? With 4 dice, you have a 52% chance of getting at least 1 6. So by tightly controlling how many dice the players can roll, you can control the probabilities and keep them low. If you use this system, you need at least 1 6 to succeed, and then you give the players 20 dice. Yeah, okay, then that kind of becomes trivial. If you give the players 2 dice, oof, okay, they have about a 31% chance to succeed. Possible, but not very likely. So that is the overwhelming odds part. The players or the player characters are facing very difficult situations where their chance of success is not good. Right? If you roll a single die, you have to roll a 6 to succeed. You're rolling 2 dice. Sure, rolling at least 1 6 is more likely, but still only about a 1/3 chance. Not even quite a 1/3 chance. Slightly lower than that because of dice mathematics and dice probabilities. And so on and so forth. So, as a player, when you are rolling the dice, you want as many dice as possible to even the odds, right? And so anything that can give you more dice is a good thing. How do we get more dice? Well, there's a lot of the standard things you can do, like using equipment or having skills on the character, etc., etc. Sure, fine, we can all do that, but that's not the important part. We want the extreme action to be the thing that gives you a lot of dice to work with, so that players look at their character and go, if I don't do the extreme action, I roll 3 dice. If I do the extreme action, I roll 7 dice. Which one am I going to choose? Right? That's what I want to happen at the table. So what do I do? Right? So if you need at least 1 6 to succeed, on failure, get 1 point in, and I'm going to give this an arbitrary name right now, just to have something to work with, to have something to reference. Conviction. I'm going to call this conviction, which is the conviction that what the players are doing, fighting monsters and using extreme actions, is correct, right? This kind of self-righteous conviction. So you get 1 point in conviction. When you roll the dice, when you do an extreme action, you roll your conviction in dice. Right? So, extreme action, you announce it in the narrative. You have to do it in the narrative, but then roll your conviction as dice pool. And because the odds of succeeding are relatively low, it is likely that you will get a couple of points of conviction at some point, right? Sooner rather than later. And then your conviction will look very, very tasty and very tempting to roll. Right? Like I said, oh, if I roll my normal stats, I roll 3 dice. If I roll conviction, I have 7 points in conviction. I can roll 7 dice. Look at that. The chances of getting a 6 are not guaranteed, but really, really good. Right? So that's what you're looking at here. And then you have to look at, okay, so you can roll your conviction as dice pool, but, and this is where I'm still not clear on how to do it. Either if you fail a conviction roll or if you get more than 1/6. Both of these are tempting. Both of these can be justified in the narrative. All right, if you do a conviction roll and you fail, then you go, "Oh, I must try even harder." Or maybe if you roll a conviction roll and you get more than 1/6, you get an absolutely smashing success, and that just reinforces to you that what you're doing with these extreme actions works and is right. I'm not sure yet. I'm leaning toward the second one, right? Um, so getting more than 1/6. Oh my goodness, I am not able to write cleanly. More than uh how do I phrase this? Um leads you to darkness, I guess. Just as very vague. Leads you to darkness, right? Reinforcing the belief that these extreme actions are correct, are good. Um, so if you burn down the village, and not only do you manage to drive out the demon, but you manage to destroy the demon completely with that action, then you go, huh, maybe I should burn down more villages next time. Right? This is obviously working. Um, so this is the idea of a great success. Um, more than 1/6 is the great success. Okay. Um, Hoi Lepa. Hello. Hello from Germany. Hello. Hello from Taiwan. How are you doing? What's brewing? What's brewing? Oh. Some game ideas are brewing. Some role-playing game ideas are brewing. How are you doing? Yeah, I am making some headway with a design that I've been working on for some years. And I think I finally have an idea that looks promising. I mean, the previous ideas also looked promising, and then they didn't pan out. But this is a new idea, so a new chance to make something work. But yeah, how goes it on your end? Oops, sorry. Have you heard that? Feel a bit bad at 8:20 in the morning, but all else is okay. Oof. Yeah, do you have to like get up for work or something or for school? It always feels pretty rough. I totally get that. I had that as well. Um, get up for like morning lessons or get up for a job in the morning. Eh. And it's really cold there right now, right? I think it's like single digits in Germany in some places. So no work, so who cares? Ah, okay. That's good. So yeah, enjoy your day off, I guess. That's always nice. Um, but yeah, we're talking about the idea of a design. So the pacing mechanism is slowly gaining conviction. Convic. Come on. We are already at 20 degrees? Oh, really? Huh. Then my weather app didn't update properly. That explains why it's stuck. But okay, 20 degrees is nice. Bit cool, I guess, but it's nice. It's good weather to enjoy. Um so yeah, it's late spring. True. It is late spring indeed. But here it's starting to feel like summer. We have 30 degrees today, high humidity. It's unpleasant. It was cold the entire last week and this week as well. And today it's like 30 degrees. Let's go. Summer is coming. Um so yeah.
Endure.
At break.
In
Okay.
enduring, grow strong.
So yeah, I will not talk about the game. So that's, I guess that's just life if you live in a tropical slash subtropical country. So what are you making in detail? You have no ads? All right, so to summarize, this role-playing game. I am making a game about maybe you know the famous quote from Nietzsche. Uh like he who fights monsters needs to be careful not to turn into a monster himself. Right? If you gaze into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you. That quote, right? So if you fight monsters, you will also become a monster because of the actions you have to undertake in order to win. Right? And because of all the horrors you witness and such, and that making you less human. And that is, I want to design a game that has that as the central driver. Right? Where the player characters are setting out to fight some sort of monster. What exactly that is depends on the setting and the story. But in the course of fighting this monster, they need to use extreme actions and extreme attitudes. And in using them, they risk becoming more monstrous themselves. Right? That's the idea. And there we see, you only know the half of Nietzsche's idea. uh, yeah, I admit I only know that part. Uh, and I mean, that quote is mostly taken to mean that. But if you do know, like, the actual context or more about it, please do let me know. I am interested. I mean, Nietzsche, I don't know if that is tied to his idea of the Übermensch, right? The person who is beyond normal human morals and is beyond and above normal human morals and is better than humans because of that. I know that he also had that idea. I don't know if this is tied to that. I'm not sure. Um, yeah, but I do know that that was also one of his ideas. Um, but in any case, I am using like this trope of like he who fights monsters is a very common storytelling trope in general. Maybe it was inspired by the quote, maybe the quote was just taken to fit, but I think this uh like this trope and this type of story might also be older than Nietzsche himself. Um, right? Is it? Yeah, it already exists in myths and religions and other stories like that. So the idea of this people who fight monsters will become monsters is older than the Nietzsche quote. Basically, at the point of the abyss, humans are forced to make a choice to become the Übermensch or to become the letzte Mensch, to throw one's humanity away or desperate embrace to be human. Yeah, okay. So it is tied to the Übermensch idea. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So to at the abyss, yeah, they have to make a choice whether to abandon human morality and step above them, or to fully embrace becoming human. And yeah, okay. So it is tied to that idea, right? Um. Oh yeah. So there are like this idea though that fighting monsters makes humans into monsters themselves is very, very, very old. Um, and that's really the type of narrative idea that I am trying to capture with this game. Right? Um, so yeah, the PCs are facing overwhelming odds that they cannot really hope to beat just with their normal methods. And so they are incentivized to use these extreme methods in order to effectively fight the monsters. But using these extreme methods also warps the beliefs and morals of the PCs in order and turns them more monstrous. Right? Um, and the idea here is that the characters have these beliefs and attitudes and moral lines or principles, etc., that they hold on to that keep them going. And then they have the mechanical incentive, right? If they pursue extreme actions, they have a much higher chance of success. So players are incentivized to do them. But then also by doing these, you start corrupting your aspects and start becoming more monstrous. It's a reference for a human that fight monsters, stay human. Read the stories of Beowulf. Yeah. Okay. Right. Um, I can see that. Okay. Right. Yeah, so Beowulf in the end, so he does not want to become a monster, even though he kind of gives up on life, on the joy of life in a way, right? As the story progresses. As far as I know, I don't know Beowulf super well. But yeah, he fights monsters, but that also makes him very jaded and very. It changes him. It definitely changes him. Um, whether for good or ill, I'm not. He was half demon. Ah, okay. But that is a different story. That is a completely different story. That is someone who is already corrupted and is trying to cleanse or atone for their corruption. That is a different story. Also a good story, but not what I'm going for here. What I'm going for here is people who uh, are fighting something that is clearly evil, something that is clearly monstrous and harming people, harming other people. But the only way to succeed is to become monstrous yourself. And is that really the path to go down on? Right? That is the question I want to ask with this game. Um, so a slightly different type of story. Um, yeah. So the mechanical incentive is if you go for an extreme action, you will have a very high chance of success, but then you also have the chance of fallout where you have to start corrupting your aspects. So, where's my mouse? My mouse is over here. So, if we go into the game system here, right? Each character has the let's put this down in a more formal way. Character aspects, right? Then also maybe some sort of stats or skills, right? Conviction, and I think that's all we need, right? Stats or skills or perks or equipment, whatever, right? This can be relatively loose. That's not the focus. What kind of monsters? Do they become cyborgs? Maybe mutants like Hulk? Or is it a mental thing like sociopathy? More the mental thing. It's more it depends on the exact setting, right? So fighting monsters can actually be like big monsters like dragons or maybe demons or horrors. It can be uh fighting like organizations or establishments that can also be the monster. And then the way you fight them, there's this very famous quote in Andor, the Star Wars series Andor. Like I am forced to use the tools of my enemy to fight my enemy or something like that. Something along those lines, right? So I have to become like my enemy in order to have a chance of beating them. Right? And it's not just going crazy, it's more doing things that make you less good. And eventually you do so many bad things, so many evil things, use so extreme methods that you become just as dangerous and just as evil as the thing you were trying to fight. Right? So it's not going crazy, really. It's becoming blinded in your single-minded goal and not seeing the harm you are bringing in your fight to beat whatever the setting or the story says you are fighting. Right? That's what this is. Um, and depending on the story and the setting, sure, you might also get like physically changed. Right? Works very well for things like eldritch horror. Right? You adopt uh, eldritch methods and eldritch technology and magic or whatever it might be, and that corrupts you and it physically changes you. That is possible, right? But that is like the exact setting or the exact context and the story and such. That is open for interpretation. Um, More important is this type of story. Where you set the story is not as important as the type of story you are telling. Right? Um, so the character aspects. So this is uh as we said, the beliefs, attitudes, relationships, principles, Principles that guide the character. And it's possible to use these maybe to power roles as well. So you could say if a certain action is in line with your principles or your beliefs, you get an extra die, right? Something like that. And this is establishes dice pool to give the players something to play with. And there should be an escalation scale for the enemy so the GM can see how much must happen till the monster goes down. Yeah, definitely. That can also be a thing. And that is very, very easy to implement. You could definitely have successes be like that when the GM creates the monster and creates the adventure, that they have a list of things that must happen before the monster is beaten, and then the players can try to attempt these things, and when they succeed, you cross them out, right? Or you fill a clock, or you something, whatever. Um, right? There's this super useful tool which is this clock. You can have something like that, and then if the players or the player characters succeed on one step, then you can fill the clock like this. And you can have a success and a fail clock, right? You can have right you can have a success clock and a fail clock, a failure clock, right? So you can have, oh, if the characters succeed on, I don't know, taking down a bunch of cultists trying to do a ritual, awesome, that's one big success in taking down the monster. If they then manage to steal an artifact that was being used, also awesome, right? But if they then do something else and accidentally, I don't know, get an important ally killed, then that is a failure, and then you fill this up, and so on. And then you can have these two clocks racing against each other, and the player actions will determine what gets filled, and things like that. So that is definitely something you can do. This is very easy to implement. Um, and that I'm not sure how much of a scaling, like I already have a type of pacing in the game. I'm not sure how much other pacing things I can put in. Um Maybe with the aspects. There's some ideas. Let me first write down what this is, and then here you establish this dice pool and uh failures build conviction. Right? So this leads to conviction, and then conviction slowly grows, right? So if you have like 2 points in conviction, that means if you use this extreme action, you roll 2 dice. But if you use a normal action, you might already roll 2 or maybe 3 dice. Then using conviction is not really worth it. But if conviction keeps growing and then you get 4, 5, 6 points in conviction, then suddenly your chances of success by using conviction is much higher than using your normal stats or skills, right? So this is low numbers, and this is can grow large. That's the whole point, is that conviction can grow very large. You might even get like 7 or 8 or 9, and suddenly it's like, huh, if I roll my normal stats, I get uh I get 2 dice. If I roll conviction, I get 8 dice. What kind of dice? Six-sided dice. So the idea is you uh, roll six-sided dice, and 6, right? At least 1/6 is a success. So if you're rolling a single 6-sided die, you have a 1 in 6 chance of success. If you roll 2 6-sided dice, you have something like a 31% chance of success. Right? If you roll 4 6-sided dice, then all of a sudden you have a 52% chance of success. But so the more dice you roll, the higher your chance of success, but it is still very low in general, right? So you really want more and more dice. So if conviction can grow very large suddenly, you're like, if I roll 8 dice, the chance of me getting at least 1/6 is really, really good, especially compared to rolling 3 dice, for example. Right? So that's what you want. Conviction grows, slowly grows. Activated on extreme action. Right? But can corrupt an aspect. And I am liking the idea of aspects and such building into the pool more and more. Because what you can do is, sure, you look at your stats or skills or equipment or whatever, and you say, okay, I get one die from here, one die from there, one die from there. I rolled 3 dice. But if this thing, if one of my beliefs or principles applies to this action I am doing right now, I get an extra die. Or 2 maybe, right? Really cool. Now here's the thing, when you have a corrupted, so let me write this down. Adds dice. So this is adds points, and this is corrupts. If you do an action, right, and you say, hold on, one of my corrupted aspects applies to this action, I get bonus dice. That means your your character slowly changing has an effect on how they approach future obstacles. Right? It's not just something that is on a character sheet and never comes up again. It's actually, if you have um some sort of principle, some guiding principle, and it gets corrupted into uh no magic user can be left alive, right? A very extreme principle, very extreme guiding principle. And you are facing down some sort of magic user, and your character says, no, I will try to murder this magic user. Hold on, my principle of no magic user can be left alive applies to this. So I want to pursue actions that are in line with my aspects. And if my aspects start getting corrupted, I want to pursue actions that are in line with the corrupted aspects, right? And that is the whole slowly becoming more and more monstrous, your actions becoming more and more extreme and evil just on a normal scale. And like the player being incentivized to choose these actions and to play the character in this way. So belief codex, yeah, kind of, exactly. Personal beliefs, personal attitudes, and principles that guide the character and that allow the character to get better chances of succeeding on a check. Right? So you want to use your aspects, but the only way you can use your aspects is to actually play your character in that way. right? And do actions that fit the aspects. Um, right. So, and corrupted aspects should work the same way. Maybe corrupted aspects are more powerful, right? So normal aspects at 1 die, but corrupted aspects at 2. Maybe, right? Those things are playtesting. This is what you have to do in playtesting and see how that changes the way players approach the game and how that changes the play experience and such. But that is an idea, right? Um, what I still need here, however, is a way to lower conviction. Because I don't want conviction to just grow endlessly and at some point the player just rolls 15 dice or something. I don't want that. Um, so the idea right now that I have in my head is if you use a corrupted aspect, right? Using corrupted aspect lowers conviction, right? Because you are already doing what you believe is right in that sense. Um, so, um, yeah, so you can have, so as an example, you can have someone who has a principle of magic is a dangerous tool, right? So, sure, you can have that as a normal principle. Magic is a dangerous tool. That is perfectly okay. That is a normal aspect to have. And then you play the character for a while. You can use this whenever you encounter magic and you deal with magic in a way that reinforces your belief of, yeah, magic is a dangerous tool. Let's not use it, right? Let's not let our enemy use it, but let's not use it ourselves, and so on. And then you face down, and then one of the big troubles that you solve is a magic user who used magic, went in over their heads, and just caused a lot of chaos and destruction because they couldn't control the magic anymore, even though the magic user may not have been evil, right? And then you end up killing that magic user because that was the only way to stop the magic, and you used a conviction to do so, right? And then at some point it's like use uh conviction to kill magic user who caused okay, I cannot write. Caused a great destruction. Right. And then you are players allowed to have contradictory beliefs on one character? I don't see why not. I don't see why not. That would be very interesting. Right? Um Humans are not 100% consistent necessarily, and having a character with slightly contradicting beliefs can be very interesting. So yeah, yeah, sure. That sounds like a very interesting thing. In fact, right? So you use the conviction to kill a magic user who caused great destruction because the magic was too dangerous, went out of control, and it confirmed your belief of magic as a dangerous tool. But more than just confirming your belief, right? So where is my let me use this. Not just confirm. This is confirm plus reinforce. And so you say, okay, not only is magic a dangerous tool, anyone who uses magic is too dangerous and needs to die. Right? So this is a continuation of this. So the idea here is that when you corrupt an aspect, you shouldn't change it from something to something completely unrelated. It needs to make sense, right? Because the story is told that way, right? Your character's views get more and more extreme. So you mark this aspect as corrupted and say, all magic users must die, right? And that is the corruption. And then you mark that, you rewrite the aspect it from magic is a dangerous tool to all magic users must die, mark it as corrupted, and from now on, every time you use this aspect to make a roll, it's no longer enough to just say magic is a dangerous tool, right? The situations in which you can apply this aspect have changed, but also, and I'm starting to like this idea more and more, every time you use it, it gives you 2 dice instead of 1 die. And every time you use it, your conviction goes down. So I'm starting to like this more and more. So it's possible for your conviction to remain unchanged, right, by using an corrupted aspect and then failing the check. So you lose a point and you gain a point, so conviction remains unchanged. So mostly conviction is going to grow to a certain point and then remain at a relatively high number to make it tempting, right? Conviction is there to tempt the player, not the character. The player must be tempted. I should write this down. The player must be tempted. Must be, come on, tempted to use conviction. All right. So this is essentially because then this turns it from just a storytelling game into a more role-playing game, right? In a storytelling game, you can just say, all right, we are here to tell the stories of people who fight monsters and in the course of doing so turn into monsters themselves, right? And you are kind of, everyone playing a character is also just the audience with a certain distance between themselves and the character and just observing their story and guiding them like pieces on a game board. But when the player gets tempted to use conviction and to pursue extreme actions, then they dive into this role and then they have to ask the questions of, am I willing to burn down the village to save the village? Or am I not willing to do that? Right? So it puts them it moves them from being a more distanced audience looking at this tragedy play out to becoming an active participant in this tragedy and making the tragedy happen. Right? And that's why I want this mechanical temptation to be there of your conviction is at 8 right now. Do you want to roll it? If you roll it, you will most likely succeed and you will, win and you will save people. Hooray! That's what you want, right? But then you look at that and go, yeah, but if I roll 8 dice, the chance of rolling 2 6s is also pretty high, and all of a sudden my character then becomes corrupted by the actions they're taking. Do I really want that? And these are the types of questions I want players to ask. This is the decision I want players to make, right? To agonize over when playing the game. And I feel like this can achieve that. I feel like this can do it. Right? What I like about this design is that the setting is open. Right? Of course, it's not generic, so not every setting is going to work. You will need some sort of overwhelming evil, overwhelming monstrosity that you are fighting. You have odds are stacked against you, and the story, the setting, and such must allow for the story of you are slowly going to turn into a monster yourself by fighting this. But these are relatively broad. You could even have something like cyberpunk, right, where you have a cyberpunk runner fighting against mega corporations, and because mega corporations are so powerful and have so many resources and have so many people everywhere, and you are just one small group of cyberpunk people living on the streets, the methods you have to use to effectively damage the corporation will become more and more extreme. And at some point, you will start hurting other people as well, just like the megacorp is hurting other people. Right? And hey, yeah, you can run a story like that in a cyberpunk setting. That works. If this is the kind of story you want to tell. Right? Or you can tell it in a classical dark fantasy, right? Where there is some sort of demon lord and the whole world is overrun by demons, right? Diablo style. And you have to go out and fight demons. But in order to effectively fight them, you have to use more extreme weapons and magic and methods. And using them corrupts you and maybe actually changes you into a monster by transforming you bit by bit. That is also possible, right? Um, or anything in between. There are so many possibilities of of possible settings where you can tell a story like this. So, like having all of these settings be possible is intentional. I don't want to tie myself down. The type of story is more important than the setting and the dressing of the story. Um so yeah. So this is using the whole idea of you want more dice, but more dice is not always necessarily more better, right? And the consequences then are your character slowly becomes more and more corrupted as the game goes on, as you just play and use your many dice. Mm, yeah. Anything else here? I think that's mostly it for a basic idea that I can now write up and playtest. Right, this is enough to playtest now. Um, what stats and skills and such to use, that really depends on how complex I want this portion of the game to be, how different I want characters to be. Are there benefits for corruption? Uh, kind of. So the idea is, right, a non-corrupted adds aspect adds 1 die, whereas a corrupted aspect adds 2. So having a corrupted aspect can give you better odds right? Can give you more dice and make you like increase your chances for success. Um, but you don't want all of it to be corrupted. You don't want your character to become completely corrupted because then they become the monster. So you will only have something like, I don't know, 3 aspects, maybe 4. Again, the exact numbers, you need to find that out through playtest, right? Right now, a number like 3 or 4 seems like a good starting point. Um, the idea is also, so this is, I mean, that's the role playing game aspect of it, but there's also the story aspect of it. Of we are watching this tragedy happen. We are watching these characters fall and become monstrous, and we are here to see them fail. Right? This is the story we want to tell together. So it's a lot like playing something like 10 Candles or playing something like Call of Cthulhu, where at the end of an adventure, you kind of expect characters to not survive, right? And that is the expected end of the adventure. Right? It is completely different from something like D&D, where the expected ending is the characters triumph and beat the big boss and come back to town and become rich and level up and become stronger and so on. That is the expected ending of Dungeons and Dragons. The expected ending of something like Call of Cthulhu or other horror games, which this leans heavily into, but this is more personal horror, is the characters are going to fall and are not going to make it. And we are here to witness and experience this story. And it's the reason why you watch tragedies or read tragic stories with sad endings, right? Because you want to experience that. And this is the same idea. So, yes, there are mechanical benefits for corruption, but eventually, if you get too much of it, if you get all of it, that's it. Your character's done. Your character becomes the monster, right? And then you as a player can get some catharsis and say, "Wow, we just went through that story," uh, and yeah, have that experience. And the benefits of corruption are, it's not so much there are benefits for corruption as there are benefits for using conviction, right? This is the benefit, right? Using conviction versus using your stats is rolling 2 or 3 dice versus rolling 7, 8, 9 dice, right? That is the choice you are making. It's like, how important is it that I succeed on this task versus how important is it that I don't get corrupted, right? So you are weighing uh success now versus possible corruption, right? If I succeed on this now, on this task now, that is really good, right? I banish the demon, or I blow up a factory of the megacorp, or whatever. Um, but then I risk getting corrupted. Or you can say, well, not getting corrupted is more important to me than succeeding on this task, right? But you have to make a choice. You have to look at these two. Uh, Let me write it like so. Success now plus possible corruption. Corruption versus a low chance of success plus no corruption, right? So, what is more important to you right now? Succeeding or not getting corrupted, right? And this is the choice you are making. And that determines whether you roll with your stats or you roll with conviction. Right? This is the choice. This is the main choice that players are making when they um, roll dice. So it's more the benefits of using conviction rather than the benefits of getting corrupted. Corruption is a consequence. Though yes, it doesn't hurt maybe to have a benefit for corruption. Again, playtesting. This is what playtest is for, right? So we have a bunch of ideas now. We have a system that is in a nice loop, so it feeds into itself and it always goes, okay, this is what happens next. This is the next step. And then some things where we see, okay, what do we need to adjust? Where do we need to look at if this works or not? Do we want 1 die or 2 dice? Do we want 3 or 4 bit beliefs, etc.? Those are all things you find out in playtesting. But yeah, so you cannot theory craft your way out of this. You actually have to test the game. But so far, I think I am happy with the basic resolution system and with the basic mechanic that I have set up here. And I don't want too many extra mechanics on the side because then that will distract from the core idea of this is the choice you are making. This choice is the most important choice in the game. Every time you roll the dice, and I don't want things to distract from that. So I don't want too many other mechanics around it. Yeah. Okay. I think this is as far as I can get right now. Some point I can write this up more formally and then test this, maybe. I'll have to see if I can find people willing to test. Willing and able, very important. Test systems with me. Because play testing a game is very, very different from just playing a game. So it's a very different thing. But yeah, I think this is it for now. I have been going for almost 4 hours, so this is a good time to stop. Right, these tabletop workshops tend to go around 4 hours. All right. Yeah. So we analyzed the design of Don't Rest Your Head. Again, an absolute excellent game. Don't Rest Your Head. The PDF is $5. So very, very affordable. It's an excellent game with absolutely S tier elegant design. I love it. It's my favorite role-playing game. Very easy to read, very easy to learn. A lot of very good ideas. All right, the rules can be summarized on 1 page. So yeah, it's definitely very simple. And good design. Very, very good design ideas in there. And then we used that to inspire our own design for something I have been working on for several years. Like holy heck, tried so many ways to make this work. Maybe this will work now. I will have to play test. Thank you for a stream. Yeah, thank you for being here. So I will be back hopefully on Saturday. Yeah, Saturday my time with more Baldur's Gate. And we will let's see. We will have next week if my body can keep up with it, I'll have to see if I can get enough rest and if I can recover. Next week, more of this. I do this every week, every Thursday, tabletop design, and discussing things like this. So yeah. Let's check who is on. Fauna is streaming right now. She's been going for almost 5 hours, but I don't know. We can raid. Let's just raid into Fauna. So Fauna, very high energy VTuber, very awesome as well. Currently playing Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. So hey, from one RPG to another RPG. So yeah. Yeah, thank you everyone for being here. This was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a thing or two. And yeah, I hope to see you again soon. Yeah. Take care and bye bye.